Joshua Grady, welcome back to the show.
Yes, sir.
Third time being here. Well, not in this.
First time being in this room.
Not the studio, but third time being on the show. You're actually the first guest on the podcast. And now this will be like episode 184. So
major moves.
Yeah, came a long way. So I appreciate you coming back.
I appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely.
Three-peat, I think this will probably be our most in-depth discussion. Yeah, this is exciting. Look at you, bro. You're doing it big. I was going to say so now I'm looking here. Before we recorded, thinking back to the last episode we recorded, I think it was in your apartment or your townhouse's, living room.
Yeah.
So came a long way. That's good.
And the first one was on Zoom.
There it is.
So,
yeah.
Levels.
Yeah, always level. One thing about Matt Lubin, he going to level up.
Yeah, trying to. I appreciate it. So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, you're an NFL agent. You run one of the fastest growing sports agencies in the world. You run a media company. You're a father, a husband. You have a lot of different hats that you wear. I want to start off by talking about the sports agency when GSA was just a thought. Whenever we're on a recruiting call with players, you always give them an introduction of who you are, where you came from. Can you give us that rundown so people can see where you came from? So now when we get into more of the discussion of here's what GSA looks like today, they get a better understanding.
Of course. So my name is Joshua Grady, not Josh. Okay. I'm originally from Tampa, Florida. Grew up playing ball. Went to high school at a high school called Armwood. Played quarterback. Went D1 Vanderbilt. We were top 25 twice. Won 2 bowl games. Played for Coach Franklin, who's now at Penn State. Played quarterback, receiver, some special teams. Got my degree in economics. Did a grad transfer to University of Florida. Got my master's in sports management. Played ball there. So kind of your typical, D1 college football, story. I knew I wasn't going to the NFL, and so this was going into the 2015 NFL draft. There was a man named Eugene Parker. Eugene is one of the most legendary agents of all time. He worked with Deion Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Larry Fitzgerald, really a pioneer of what it meant to be an NFL agent. And Eugene was also friends with my dad. Eugene represented good friend, godbrother Dante Fowler, who was drafted number 3 overall to the Jaguars at this point in the 2015 draft. I went to the draft with Eugene. My dad was there, and just seeing the draft unfold, seeing Dante, walk across the stage, getting the hat, shaking the commissioner's hand, things of that sort of stuff you see on TV. Mm-hmm. It really just showed me that this was a space that I wanted to get into. I knew I wanted something to do with football, didn't know what. Some people think coaching, or, some people want to continue to play. I just knew I wanted neither of those two, but was trying to kind of unveil what was next. And in spending time with Eugene, it showed me that this was an industry that I wanted to get into. He had a company at the time called Grady Sports. They were rated number 3 most valuable sports agency in the country. So long story short, they were doing big stuff, right? But unfortunately, in 2016, Eugene was diagnosed with cancer and he passed away. His company disbanded. I ended up working for a marketing firm for roughly 8 months. Did some stuff with Dak Prescott, for example. And in working for this company, I realized 2 things. One was I hated having a boss. For me, I got tired of being told what to do and when to do it. For those that might not know, the college athlete schedule, just before the days of NIL when you're getting paid to do this stuff. But, it's workouts, rehab, study hall. I couldn't go home for Thanksgiving break, for example, and I was just over that. And secondly, as I realized a lot of these agents looked at young men as just a check, just a way to put money in their pocket without really providing value beyond the game. And so for me, I was on the way to Tallahassee with my dad, just kind of looked over at him and said, hey, why don't we start our own sports agency? And when you fast forward, my first client was drafted, second client was drafted, third client was drafted. This last draft class, we signed a guy, Braden Fisk, who was drafted number 40 overall, making us the youngest agents to represent a top 40 pick. We have 10 draft picks so far, a couple guys that are going into year 4, second contracts on the horizon. And so for us, we're doing a lot of good stuff, to give the elevator pitch. That's what it is. And as you said, I would say we are the fastest growing NFL agency in the country and probably the hungriest. Mm-hmm. So that's that.
I love it. Yeah, great story. I want to start from the beginning of just having the dream of starting an agency, because you see Eugene working in action. You see football, you love football. And at the time, you're probably just thinking, this would be cool to do, right? Even you probably tell people now, hey, I run a sports agency. I tell people I work for a sports agency. Everybody's like, cool.
Everybody
hang out
thinks
with players,
cool.
right?
Yeah, of course.
So that's the sexy part. You're like, this is an industry that I could enjoy being in. To actually make a business, you need to differentiate yourself and have an offering, a service, a product, whatever that is different than what's already out there. You solve a problem, a pain point in that industry. For you, what was the moment that you realized there's a problem in sports agencies? I'm going to solve this, and here's how I'm going to do it.
Am I good to have this water on the table?
Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't know.
Sponsor us.
Brandon, oh yeah. Hey, Path Water, if y'all watch this, I'm looking sponsorship right here. I mean, for me, bro, it was just like my high school running back his name's Matt Jones. We played ball, like we were top 20 in the nation my senior year. So we had a lot of guys coming out of school that were talented. My dad coaches a 7-on-7 team, so he's coached guys like Derwin James, Vernon Hargraves, who went, I think, 11th overall, numerous guys that have gone on to the NFL, Deontay Johnson, Nelson Aguilar. And so my high school roommate was one of the guys my high school teammate is one of the guys that we played with. He was drafted 3rd round to the Washington Redskins. And he signed with an agent that was one of the most notable agents of all time. But it just showed me like there wasn't really a relationship there. There wasn't a plan for after football. And so it just didn't make sense, one. And so for me, just coming to this space, it was just like I wanted to give guys who maybe had similar backgrounds to me or guys that were similar like the guys that I play with. This is a formula where this is when the stats really started coming out. I think ESPN had a documentary called Broke. And there was a documentary like on Trent Richardson where he talked about the family influence and how like he lost a lot of his funds because of the people around him. So it was around maybe like the early 2000s where it really started to become promoted more about like a lot of these guys play in the league, make their millions, and 3 years later they got nothing to show for it. And for me, that just it don't make sense. You know, my mom always told me like one of the reasons I went to Vanderbilt was she said in life you have 4 to 5 year decisions and you have 40 to 50 year decisions. Yeah. And for me, going to Vanderbilt was a long-term game. It was, let me get this piece of paper that tells people like, hey, I'm legit, I got credentials, and I've seen how that has benefited the rest of my life so far. And I think for these young men, they grow up thinking it's just football. You know, like I started playing when I was 7. It was ball. But my mom also told me what you got between your ears is gonna take you so much further than your physical body. And so I just really now want to be able to give those tools to the next generation of young men where we show them like, hey, you can have a great NFL career. We'll help you do that. The contracts, pre-draft, all of that. But there's so much more of the rest of your life where if you're intentional about it, you utilize the resources that we have, and that life is just offered. This Earl Nightingale and The Stranger's Secret, I think we talked about this the last time we interviewed. Like in something in that, you know, the monologue he gives is, this is the greatest time of ever that men have looked forward to when you look at the opportunity and the resources to make something of yourself. Mm-hmm. And so we want to help guys utilize those resources to create wealth. So, and I can ramble a little bit, so I'll stop there, but that'll kind of be my take on it all.
Yeah, I love that. I see much more admiration for you now that I feel like I'm going down a similar path that you went down. You graduate college, you go into entrepreneurship, you go against the grain of your peers in society of just go get a job and settle
Getting
down.
out the rat race.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So at first, like I see people doing it when I was like in high school, college. I'm just like, that's cool. But like to actually be trying to do that, it's tough. And there's always times where you feel like I should just go back to the norm. I should just go get a career. I should change things up. Was it ever a difficulty for you to stay the course in entrepreneurship and not just go get a job in corporate America?
Great question. I would say, I think the cop-out answer is saying no, but the only reason the reasoning behind it wasn't a thought is because I never knew anything else. For me, this was my first job. You know, I might have cut grass for the neighbor once or twice when I was younger, but it was always sports, you know, playing ball, going to school. I never worked at a store, was never a waiter, never had a job, like never worked in an office space. So I was never in that arena. And so for me, like being on my own in quotes, it was natural. Like I grew up loving risk. Like I used to gamble. So I'm from Tampa. When I turned 21, we got a Hard Rock hotel and casino. I was at that blackjack table, made some money, lost a lot more money. You know, I had my history with sports betting. Like I've always known that in order to get something out of life, like you have to lay something on the line. You know, you have to sacrifice, and sometimes you're gonna take losses. But I was okay with doing so. I don't know if that's genetic. Is that because of my dad? My dad actually started his own company. I think this was like 2007. So there was a bit of exposure to his space. But then also is like, I'm kind of like what we're doing right now with these podcasts. You know, this was probably 2015, 16. And I started listening to other people's stories. You know, this is when I listened to The Strangest Secret about Earl Nightingale. This is when I discovered Tony Robbins. This is when I started listening to School of Greatness with Lewis Howes, like one of the best podcasts. It changed my life, you know, listening to people talk about the Mel Robbins and, you know, different individuals that was in the dirt, you know, broke, nothing to show, and you see what it takes to get, you know, successful. I think a lot of people, we think it's, you know, the escalator, you know, all right, I'm starting this path, I'm supposed to go just straight up. But the reality is there's ups, there's downs, there's curves. As long as you're trending upwards, then you're headed in the right path. I don't think it's any different than you, you know what I'm saying? Like, same way you talked about admiration for me, I think it's the same for you. Like, I remember me and Lydia actually talked about this not too long ago. Lydia's my wife, by the way, 5 years. Lyd, if you watch this, I love you. But, you know, you did the selling cooking utensils or something like that, you know, with the webs on that side, the solar panels. You've had the architecture, you know, the cutting landscaping before. You and even the podcast. We started on Zoom. Then we're in your living room. Now you're in a legit studio. Like, that is how, it's not linear, but that is how you get to where you're trying to get to in life. So I think it's just a combination of learning lessons, understanding really what it takes, and continuing at it. I think is the biggest thing. A lot of people give up when they're right there.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I came a long way, both of us.
Yeah, facts. And it's a lot longer to go. Got a lot more work to do.
Just getting started.
Yeah. I think the trend here is you see a lot of growth and you get the right people around you. And you have a team or just good influences around you to actually grow. This could be a podcast. This could be the team in your company. This could just be friends around you. But having good people in your corner, like Lydia, to support and push you and say, like, there's more work to do and, like, let's do this together. For you, starting with GSA, you were by yourself for a long time. You know, a few years of just recruiting and trying to sign players and get them on teams, and it was a lot just on your own. And I mean, you even admitted there's a lot of just figuring out like what to do, how to do it. Now, fast forward, we have 11 people on our team. Okay, 11 people on our team. We had our biggest draft class ever this past year, most successful draft class ever. How have you seen a change in either your personal success or business success once you started to build a team, but build the right team?
I would say it came a point, I don't know if I heard this from someone, read it somewhere, but you realize at some point, like, I need help. And I think, you know, we talk like ego is the enemy, like common phrase, like ego is the enemy, right? And I think for a lot of us, we can be too prideful to acknowledge, like, I can't do it all myself, or there's someone out there that if I had them around me would make my life easier. And so for me, like, I realized that probably year 3, year 4, where it was like marketing, for example, like, I might know a little bit, but there's other people out there that if they worked with me, our marketing could do more. Similar to you, like when you started working with us, it was like, all right, well, this guy, Matt, is organized, he's buttoned up, he's intentional, and like, I'm a procrastinator. You're not, you're gonna get things done. So it's like, all right, well, you got this guy that has a different skill set than me. Let me bring him along, and now you look where we're at. I don't think it's any different. Like, if a quarterback's throwing to himself, like, maybe you can you throw it 10 yards and run up and get it, but if you have a wide receiver running the route, you can do a lot more. There's actually, I don't know what movie this was or what it is, soccer, and this guy kept trying to dribble the ball to the net. He would always try to dribble it, run with the ball, go to the net. And his coach would tell him, like, look, you got these teammates out here where instead of you trying to get around these 9 defenders, if you pass the ball, we'll get to the net sooner, more efficiently, take less strain off of your body. It's genius. I think it's very much the same way with work. I grew up, like, I love superheroes. I'm all about the superheroes. My favorite series of all time, Marvel Avengers. I love the Avengers. Started with Iron Man, whatever year that was, 2009, 2010, 2011, one of those years that, you know, the first Iron Man comes out. Along comes Thor, Captain America, you got the Hulk, you got Black Widow, you got Hawkeye, and then whenever the first, like, Avengers film comes out, they're all together in New York fighting these aliens, and they win. I think that's very similar to life. If you have, like, I consider myself, I love Tony Stark, so I consider myself, I like Iron Man, you know, he kind of like an integral piece. I look at Matt, Captain America, no brainer. And so now when you start adding this person and this person that can do this, you got EJ on the legal side, Nicole on the marketing side, Daniel on the contract side. Now I got a PR person, shout out D-Flow. Like, you bring in people with different skill sets, what you're able to do is so much greater. It's common sense. You know what I mean? If I can lift a brick and you can lift a brick and this person can lift a brick, you'll have that wall built much sooner than if you trying to put it together all by yourself. But again, I think the hurdle for people is there's an ego attached. It's pride. It's hard for people to I think, one, acknowledge I need help. And then two is you also have to be someone that people want to help too. You know what I mean? You can't be someone that's saying like, oh, I need help, but then someone comes to help you. Oh, I don't need your help though. No, you have to be willing with open arms to see like, okay, I was taught this. People are like snowflakes. I'm different than you, but you're also different than me.
Yeah.
And so I can provide some value to Matt. Matt can provide value to me. And when you look at individuals in life as these are people that can impact me and I can impact them, you do it together, I think you're in a good spot. And that's how we've gotten to where we are.
That's good. One thing you and I talk about is casting a vision and setting in place where you want to go and get people to buy in on it. What is the vision for you and why is it so important for your team to buy into it?
I would say the vision for us, the easiest way to summarize would be we want to be not the biggest agency, but we want to be, I would say we want to be the pound for pound the best, to where every client that we bring in, whatever their goals are on the field, whatever their goals are off the field, if they want to be a business owner, if they want to get into real estate, if they want to be a husband one day, they have children, I want to be an agency that can impact our clients no matter their field of endeavor. So I think that is one. And for the people that work with us, it's just like what we're doing is so uncommon. Like, as for transparency's sake, like, you just started getting a very small salary this last year. You know, you worked for 3 years with never had a handout, never asked for no money because you saw, all right, we're trying to do something different. I think also, like, I read Shoe Dog 3 times now. I know you've read it a couple times too. It's fun being here too. Like, some Phil Knight talks about is he want his work to be play. I very much feel like the agency, like earlier today, you look at our work day today. I fly in, you pick me up, we get food, we have a meeting, sit down for an hour, we come collective, we work out, now we're chopping it up. Like, this is a work day.
Yeah.
We're not clocking in, not answering no phone calls from a boss that we don't like. So there is an appeal for those that buy in. Is like, we have a very rare culture that people that are bought in, that are all into what we're doing, like, we enjoy our time together. It is a very unique space. You know what I mean? It's not many places you can go work out with your coworker randomly on a Wednesday, middle of the day, but we can do that. So I think it's the combination of, there is a clear vision of this is what we're trying to do. I think constantly, like, we evolve. So like how we are doing it always evolves, changes, things of that sort, brainstorming, always trying to develop, but also is like, people like working with us. We're young. You know, we have a high energy. I'm 31, you're 24. You're 24, correct? 23. You're not even 24 yet. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, how many people do you know that work in sports, that work with these athletes, the cool job? It can be cool, you know, going on the field, things of that sort pregame. It's just an enjoyable space and an enjoyable team that we have. We like each other for the most part. Sometimes I know we can annoy each other, but I just think we have a rare thing going on.
Yeah, you annoy me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. Lydia would say the same, and she's been with me for 5 years, so it's cool.
That's funny. What was the most rewarding part of your career so far?
The most rewarding part of my career so far? That's a great question. I'm gonna get some of these I'll cop out. I got two. I think the most rewarding moment, so like to me, the most enjoyable moment is when, I guess this kind of goes in the same, when a guy's drafted. When, you know, I remember like, this was 2018. So Jordan Wilkins, 2018 draft. Jordan Wilkins was my second draft pick. Jordan was the younger brother of my college roommate. Okay, so we've had some very organic relationships. So the younger brother of my college roommate, and Jordan signs with me. Like, I don't know nothing at this point. I'm in year 2. I don't know anything about anything. Right now we have like full presentations when we present to guys. We have a plan of approach, everything. I came to this final meeting with a piece of paper that just outlined, this is the training package and this is my promise to you. And that was it. And we left that meeting, his mom was in tears because there was just like an emotion attached to it. And so for me, you get to the draft, sitting down, okay, It's not day one. With day one for those, that's first round. Like these are the stars. These are when the baller, the top of the top are going. We're now on day 3 where it's kind of a crapshoot. I don't know what's going to happen. He could get drafted. He could not. His parents are asking me questions. Every time I get a phone call, everybody's looking at me, high stress, palms sweating, okay? Didn't put on enough deodorant this day. I was all stressed out. But then Jordan gets the phone call. He goes in this room. Yes, sir. I don't know what's being said. Hangs up. He's like, yeah, what I mean? And the whole family just is euphoria. That is a one word I would describe when the guys, it's euphoric. There's no word. It's 15 seconds, 60 seconds of pure bliss. So for some people, maybe that's when you're on a roller coaster. For some people, that's when you're with your spouse. For some people, maybe that's when you're playing poker or whatever it might be. But those your euphoric moment when your team catches the Hail Mary and it's like it is that. And it's because you see the decade plus of workouts in the backyard, parents taking them to school, parents taking them to private training, the guy putting in work 6 a.m. in college, some of the work that we have put in to help prepare them for this moment, and it actually happens. I think that is the real joy. Like, there's so many opportunities in life where, like, life is hard, you know what I'm saying? So many things in life where you work towards something and it doesn't happen. Like, that is very real. You put in the work to the house or to a relationship or to a job, and it just doesn't become, it could never become what you're hoping for. But when it does, it's like, it's second to none.
Yeah.
Jason Pinnock's drafted. Had our first year, we had 2 guys, him and Grant. Euphoria. Fast forward this last draft class, we're sitting there Friday. All spring, we're talking about this could be our highest draft pick. It's that moment between there's a goal over here. I think it could be real, but I don't know, is it for real?
Right.
And then it happens. It is an unbelievable feeling, and it just culminates all the work that your player has put in, that you have put in, where this is the true realization of a dream. I would say those moments, you cannot create those moments without living through them. I mean, you experienced it with Brady, you know what I mean? And I just think those are the moments that we really live for. So that would be my take, yeah.
So 2 years ago during the draft process, so like late April, we were sitting in an Airbnb the whole weekend, just waiting for something to happen. We had one client that year, and
nothing.
Name was gonna get called.
Right.
We sit on the phone for like an hour after, talking to a few teams, get him on a team in free agency. He lasts in the preseason, gets cut after, those cut downs. This past season, so 2024 draft, we had 5 guys go through the process. 1 goes 39 overall, and we'll start this year. What an insane difference just in 2 years. 5 times the clients, 2 more draft picks, 1 being the highest draft pick that we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, as a leader and an owner, stay the course from 2022 knowing I just lost money, my client...
A lot of money.
My client isn't in the league. I had these expectations that were not fulfilled until... the next year you had 2 draft picks. The year after you had 2 more. Why do you keep going?
I would say that there are 2 words that mean similar but are different. One is focus. So to focus on something means, if you have a camera, it means you put, I'm putting Matt in the frame of the camera and it's focused on him. Like your face, becomes clear. The camera is now focused. Well, if the camera gets hit or Matt moves, it becomes out of focus. So, you can be in focus, you can be out of focus. A word, I think this might have been a pastor, but he said, instead, you need to be fixed. When something is fixed on, like I'm fixed on Matt, it doesn't matter if I move or Matt moves, like Matt's always in my clear line of sight because my vision is fixed on Matt. I think it's very similar to the vision that you talked about. If I believe fully that we will one day be known as the best pound for pound agency. We've had a first round pick. Let's say some tangible goals. We've had a first round pick. Maybe we've had the $50 million, $100 million contract. We've helped X amount of guys realize their vision. They've got homes. They've created wealth. Like we talked about helping clients create wealth. We haven't done that yet. Some of these goals I just listed, we have not had that yet. I have not been at a Super Bowl with the confetti flying down because one of my guys just won Super Bowl MVP. I believe that to be in the future. So to me, it's like, all right, if I know that over here, if you look at the letter Z, I know no matter what happens before Z is coming. Then no matter what winds come, what storms come, what undrafted guys come, what loss on investment comes, what people on a team come, what people on a team go, what I go through personally, anything of the sort, if I know there's a clear fixed date that GSA will one day look like A, B, and C, anything that leads up to that is just helping me get to Z. And I think that is what you have to have in life is if I have a fixed vision, I know that God has told me this is going to happen and it ain't happened yet. That is something that I've always, it's just kind of sat with me is the concept of what I believe is going to happen has not happened yet. Therefore, everything I'm walking through is just to help me get to what has not yet happened. And until it happens, you just gotta keep going. Yeah. So if you're listening here and you're like, oh, I thought I had a vision one day I'm gonna be a doctor, and you believe that, medical bills piling up or student loans piling up, exams going bad, but you told yourself there's a concrete fixed vision, I'm gonna be a doctor one day, then no matter what happens until you're a doctor, you ought to keep going to that goal. For you, if you say, we talked earlier, you got this big dream, this vision of performance coaching. Like you wanna be the best performance coach in the country. Well, until Matt is the best performance coach in the country, no matter what upsets you face or difficulties you come into, what conflicts arise, until you're there, the only real choice is to keep going. And I think that is what we have to have. We quit too much. We rely too much on feelings. I think that's something like, if you listen to David Goggins, I'm a big David Goggins guy, like feelings will lie to you. Feelings will stop you from ever becoming great at anything. And so I think if you can just stick to the truth of the matter, what your fixed vision is, and you continue to work towards that. That is something we talked about the last time we talked. Earl Nightingale, maybe you asked this question at the end, maybe I'm cheating. But one thing he says, like, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So despite the conflicts or the disappointments, if you are progressively realizing, working towards your goal, you're going to get somewhere. And I think that is a summation for me. So
that's so good.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Hopefully that's not too long and I can put it on my Instagram. So.
No, it's perfect. And I think what I hear from you is whatever you're pursuing, you need a strong mindset.
Oh, yes.
Have full conviction and like not let anything else distract.
Ain't no powder puff mindsets getting anything out here.
Can't have it. So for you, what do you prescribe to? Is it podcasts, books, fitness? How do you develop the mind so that you can go down the path of entrepreneurship? You can go down the path of being a husband and a father and stay the course even when times get tough?
That's a great question. I would say it's multifaceted. As I mentioned, like there's a period of time where I was big on podcasts, probably like 2-3 years. Every single day I had headphones in, listen to a podcast. I would work out listening to podcasts. I would work listening to podcasts. If I was getting in the car, I was gonna put a podcast on. That allowed me to really take in the stories of others so you can pick up clues. I think I actually just put this in my notes, maybe one day come in a book, but it was saying how like we're all built on the words of others. No matter what you believe in life, what you believe about yourself, about what you can do in life, you've heard from someone. For most people, like the first people you listen to is your parents. They're gonna, cultivate what you'll one day become. And so I think one is listening to the podcast, the right ones. These were ones with people that were intentional about doing something serious in life, people that are really pursuing greatness. So I think that's one. From now, like I read books now. I'm not as much of an avid reader in the sense of like quantity, but if I can find a book, like I mentioned Shoe Dog, I've read Shoe Dog now 3 times. And so for me, I have one story of Phil Knight, a guy that has made Nike, sports brand, a company that if one day GSA could be mentioned in the same lore, we've done something well. I think it makes sense for me to constantly consume his story because there are pieces to his puzzle that I can use for my puzzle. So I'm big on the books, the reading. Again, the education side of things, like to read someone's story, it'll change your life forever. I read a book once, Man's Search for Meaning. This was a period of time, probably like 2017. I was lost, maybe 23, 24. Didn't know what, probably how like some of your listeners were. You can put a facade, like we can all have it, a facade, post on Instagram, I'm doing good, I'm confident, post on LinkedIn is the place of the facade, I'll tell you that.
Facts.
But I was not doing right. On paper, got his own company, he's certified, got a draft pick, but I was lost, didn't know like what I was doing. Reading his book showed me I can take Viktor Frankl's story, apply certain aspects to my life, and get on a better trajectory. So I'll say books, I'm big on. And I think also, like, my dad always told me, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So for me, like, I don't spend time with a lot of people. I honestly probably could be better with spending time with friends, things of that sort. But the reality is, like, you have to be around people. People are either going to take, like an elevator. There's just like buttons on the elevator. They're going to take you up, they're going to take you down. And so for me, I think one of the things that is slept on is the people that you are consuming. We know we all consume music. We consume food. You know, you mentioned like working out, big on, gotta lift or run, do something that challenges your mind. But what we also consume is we consume other people, the thoughts of other people. And if you can put yourself around other people, such as you know what I mean? One of my biggest growth periods with GSA is when you lived in Nashville. We spent time together, maybe a couple times a week. You're here for 4 months. By being around other people, that osmosis of intelligence, of desire, of hunger, of vision, it will only rub off on you. And the counter, if you hanging around people that's sucking you dry, that's toxic, that's gossiping, that's complaining, that's not doing nothing, you look around, slowly you're going to not be doing anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Like, I think the biggest cheat code to success and growth is the people around you. Like, you can either be tied down, and even if you have good ideas, it's so hard to get out of that. But if you have good people around you that encourage you or just even inspire you, like, you're just going to grow.
It takes a village, man. I mean, you see this being here at Collective, you know what I mean? When you see people, any day you come in here, 6 a.m., you know, what's it, the Pain Cave? Is that what they're called? You know, you roll up there. Maybe there's a morning where you are tired. Maybe you was watching UFC or something, and you tired, you get in, but here come one person, 2 people, they ready to go. 3, 4 more, you ready to go.
Yeah.
Spark. It's just like that, you know? So I'd rather be around embers than buckets of water. Because the buckets of water, they'll douse you. When you want people that's going to light that fire.
Absolutely.
Yeah, gotta have it.
One of my favorite things that we did this past year on the business side of GSA is establish core values. So 2 of I call my coaches, I don't really have direct access to them, but Andy Versello and Ed Milet, they run a coaching group, and 1 month was all about, we need to talk about core values in your business. And it just really struck a chord with me of there needs to be some structure and some North Star in business of here's what everybody needs to prescribe to and really buy in on. So you and I, we had really several weeks of conversation of what these were going to be, how we were going to present them. We don't need to go through all of them, but I want to ask you, what is your favorite core value and why?
Great question. My favorite core value, well, I mean, I could tell you the one that comes to mind instantly is hungry dogs run faster. So one of my good friends, Jordan Matthews. So Jordan is one of my buddies. We pledged together. He was a guy who, like, we played at Vanderbilt together. And then before Jordan's senior year, Jordan went somewhere in the month of May, got real serious about training. Like, he was a very good baller. Like, junior year at Vandy, he was a stud, all conference. And he came back for his senior year, and he was different. Like, he was just different. Like, his mind, I could tell there was a mental shift for him with his mindset. For those that don't know, Jordan, when he left Vanderbilt, he was the all-time leading receiver in the SEC, the best conference in college football. So you could say he's one of the best receivers ever in college football, career-wise. And something Jordan always said was, hungry dogs run faster. When he would say this, you know, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago, I'm like, oh, that's just, he was the king of the cliches, you know, always had this statement, right? I'm like, all right, that's cool, like, whatever. Maybe a year or so ago, it just really, like, I don't know why, but the notion really just started sticking with me. And basically what it means is, you know, if you put food in front of a dog that's eating, then they might sniff at it, walk over to it, nibble it, play with it. But if you put food in front of a dog that hasn't eaten, they're running over and it's gone. Same thing as a hunt. You put 2 wolves out there. You know, one wolf just ate. There's the elk. They might jog over there, get their buddies like, hey, but you put an elk in front of a dog that hasn't eaten in a day, 2 days, 3 days, savage. Yeah. It's gone, you know, instantly. They're doing whatever they got to do to get that meal. And so for me, I think that's where I believe I am as a person. Those are the type of people that I want to have with GSA. And I believe ultimately that's where we are as an agency. It's a lot of these agencies, you know, the big ones, the ones that's been around $100 million, things of that sort, they do great work. But I think there's a human inclination once you've eaten, like science. I mean, once you eat, you slow down. Your gut, your brain, it's inevitable. When you have eaten, the sweeter you've eaten, the more you've eaten, the more you're going to slow down. And so for us, I would say we've taken a few bites, but we are very much a hungry agency. And I think a hungry agency takes their guys a lot further, and the relationship is more in-depth, more intentional work. So I would say that is the first one, and I think that applies to all things. That's lifting, that's in marriage, that's in your business, that's in finance. You should have a hunger for more. You should have a hunger to be a better version of yourself. You should have a hunger to be a better dad, a hunger to be a better boyfriend, a hunger to have more money, a hunger to be anything that you claim you desire to be. There should be a hunger behind it, or you're just kind of talking.
Yeah.
And for me, I would say the second is I'm still maybe playing around with the set in stone verbiage, but I would say it's playing the long game. For me, like, everybody knows the story of the tortoise and the hare. You know, we all learn that story when we're little, things of that sort. And Rod Wave, actually, you know who Rod Wave is? Oh, okay. I'm just checking. All right, Rod Wave, in one of his lyrics, it says, it's just kind of talking about a turtle. And pretty much the takeaway is, you know, the turtle starts slow, but the rabbit comes in last. And I think having the notion that, you know, for you, performance coach, maybe one day you're not the best till you're 40. That's cool. Yeah. Maybe it's 50, maybe it's 60. It's probably not going to be when you're 25. You know what I mean? I think we live in that microwave generation where everything needs to happen now. You know, we're not successful now. We give up, we quit, we fall into depression, these different feelings. We kind of stop working towards something. But if you have an understanding that the goal is not to win today, it's not to win tomorrow, it's to win in the end. You cannot win a football game in the first quarter. Yeah. You can't win at halftime. It needs to be in the end when you have more points than the other team. And I believe if we can carry that motion, that the whole goal is to play the long game. That is how you create wealth. That is how you leave a legacy, is you have to play with the end in mind. And I would say that's another core value that really sticks with me.
What happens when you're not hungry anymore?
I would say I haven't found out yet. We actually, you know, we talked with the player at Texas, and I met with him maybe 2 months ago, and we were kind of talking about this, hungry dogs run faster. And he asked me that same question. He says, you know, it all sounds good now. I can see the hunger, but what happens when you're no longer hungry? I think in general, you have to have certain things that you're striving for that maybe last year you weren't striving for. So for us, for example, like Braden, okay, having Braden drafted in the second round, to some that could say like, oh, you're not going to be hungry anymore. Like top 50 pick, most money we'll ever make from a contract. But now I do believe like your goals should evolve. So for us, now the goal is let's get Jason Pinnock and Grant Stewart paid, which we haven't done yet. Now let's get a first-round pick, which we haven't done yet. Now I want to get a client in the Hall of Fame. Haven't done that yet. So I think if there's different meals, we might have had an appetizer, but I'm still waiting on that 50-ounce steak, okay? So still hungry for that. Yeah. And then I will say, ultimately, if there is no hunger left, if it's fully like, this is just rinse and repeat, there's no excitement, no focus, no anything, you should do something else. Yeah. So that would be kind of my take. If you're full of anything and the hunger's gone, you ought to do something else that brings the hunger back.
And sell and move to Hawaii.
That's the goal right there. Trying to get somewhere on the ocean. Yeah. Start a facility out there, kick back, pina coladas, and get some mailbox money.
Yes, sir. I love that. I want to touch on the family aspect of things. So you're a dad of 2, and you've been married for 5 years. You run your own company, but you have like your very flexible schedule. You know, you kind of set your own calendar. Work from home, you're able to do work while your kids are playing. You know, it's centered around family, not work. What would you say to someone who always thinks that work comes first and you can't have anything else surrounding it?
Man, that's a great question. You got good questions.
Thank you.
These all on the fly, or you prepared some of these questions?
Prepared a little bit.
Yeah, okay. I would say, I think that we have a false perspective of, like, we think we're supposed to balance, you know, family and work for those that have family and work. And when you think of balancing, it's kind of like a seesaw, like on the playground. Generally, when you're trying to balance something, one thing's always going to outweigh the other. And so if family is outweighing work, then you're probably going to be a little less productive at work than you ought to be. If work is going to outweigh family, then you're probably going to be working a little bit more than you're spending time with your family. I've done both. I've experienced the both of them. I think instead we should try to have a cohesion where they both coexist in different degrees of priority and different degrees of time allotment. This last 5 days, me and my family were in Destin. So we're out at the beach, no work, they're very minimal, maybe responding to a few text messages, a few emails. Family at that point was necessary for me to be all in on this time together. Now we get to this Wednesday, I'm here, I'm working, I'm not with my family. So now I know, well, tomorrow, because I was gone, I didn't spend time with the boys. So I'm going to be now intentional with, I'm going to go to the park with my wife tomorrow and spend some time with the boys, make sure they get that FaceTime, the time that we can spend together. So I think it's an ever-flowing battle, but it's something that, like, I already knew I desired to be successful in work and I desired to have a family. So you have to step into it. I think for a lot of people, our generation is, well, I want to focus on my own career. One day I want to have kids. I always hear this. I want to be married. Not yet. You know, one day. Well, for us, me and my wife is like, if it's not now, when is it going to be? You know, you can always say it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
You can always say it's tomorrow, but I just knew we wanted. Roman was born 9 months from when Lydia and I got married. So I won't say that I was planned, but it was just like, if we want children, we're not going to stop this from happening. And so I think ultimately, like, it's a lot of work now. Like, it cannot be stressed enough how much more intentional you have to be. The time, like, I don't have a TV. We don't have time to, I don't got time to just stay up and watch the news or watch certain things on sports. I have Twitter. I'm not a hermit, but for me, it's like, I don't hang out as much with friends. I'm not going out on the weekends. It's when I travel, like today, I could have decided to stay here overnight. I'm going home after this interview. So I think there are small decisions that you have to make, getting up earlier, staying up a little later. You know, you got to give up certain things to make sure these two buckets are full. I think the issue for a lot of people is it's not just work and family. It's you still want to fraternize. You still want to socialize with these people over here. You still want to have your own time where you're just goofing off, not doing anything that's intentional. Certain of those decisions I've already made, like, I don't have time for this. And so I think that is the biggest allotment, as well as just the time allocation. We all got time. Yeah. You got time to be a good dad. You got time to be a good husband. You got time to be a good coach. You got time to be good at your craft. You got time to learn a new habit. You got time to read. You got time to work out. You got time to eat right. We all got time. The issue right now is it's that scrolling.
Yeah.
And if you can defeat that, the phone and the pull and tug of others, you have time to be successful at whatever you want to be in multiple things at once.
Yeah, that's awesome. Raising kids today is tough. I couldn't imagine it.
Tough.
So I give you a lot of credit. But what is one thing in today's world that, like, you want to instill in your boys to release them 15 years from now? You know, how can you prepare them for society today?
Can't be a sheep. Can't be a sheep. You have to be able to think for yourself, reading, consuming, and having a spirit of discernment of this is truth or this is trash. And so for me, like we talk about, I don't know how transparent you want to be, but like everything that happened with COVID, you know, it was really the first time in my life where I was presented with society wants you to do A, wants you to do this. It's promoted, friends, family, everywhere you look, it was like, you got to do this here, or you don't care about nobody, you're toxic to society, you're selfish, narcissist, whatever it might be. I was able, really both me and my wife, we were able to drown out, okay, well, this is what everybody else is saying. This is what we believe common sense is telling us as to what we need to do or not do that makes sense to us given the facts or the information that's been provided. That was the first time that I really, like I said, in my life that the grain was going this way and we decided to go another route. Yeah. And I'm eternally grateful that we were able to have a moment where we thought for ourselves. And so I would say with Roman and Soul, it is the same thing. We live in the U.S., great country, like so much opportunity, but a lot of this is a rat race. Is this person is doing this, we ought to do it. Me and Lydia talked about this. You might not even remember. We went to Ole Miss. First time we went to Ole Miss, right? And there was a girl that picked us up in a golf cart. And I looked at her shoes, okay? And I asked her, I was like, you know, what shoes are those? Because to me, they look like shoes you wore to go to a frat party. Yeah. They were dirty, and they had like a star and a swoosh or something on them, right? And I don't know if she told me, you told me, someone was like, oh, those are the Golden Gooses. Those shoes like $800,000. I said, what? They look like shoes we had that you just get stomped on. Mm-hmm. That's going with the grain. Is now because society tells me these Golden Gooses are worth something, they're now ours are treated as if it's worth something. And so I think the ability to say, like, no, let me think for myself, let my boys figure out life on their own terms. Obviously, there has to be a certain level of structure. Like, I believe that we should teach them about the Lord, about what the Bible says. You have to have a structure of thought to where when certain questions come, there's a baseline. You can't just pull things out of midair. Yeah. But the ability to think for yourself is going away. You know what I'm saying? It's when we look at society right now, like everyone, not everyone, most people are followers. We follow the trends. We follow what a celebrity says, put it on the news. A lot of us are not thinking for ourselves. I think some of us are waking up. We just talked about this. The ability to think for yourself is invaluable because not everybody thinks these days. I think with artificial intelligent robots, they are making human robots today. Just you're force fed. This is what you ought to believe, and people believe it. So I would love to teach my boys the ability to think for themselves, to gather information on their own, and make decisions that align with their consciousness.
Why do you think people are being such followers now, and why that's preached?
I can't say. So this is what I would say. I asked my mom this question, and very similar is like, when we see certain things going on in society, has it always been this way, or are we just more adapt to knowing now? I think for centuries, people have been followers. Like it is, if you go like a lot of what I believe comes from the Bible. And so when I see like they were building a Tower of Babel. Okay, so there's a story like the Tower of Babel where these people are coming together to build this, the structure up to the heavens. Well, there was a person or persons that said, hey, we're going to do this. And they brought other people along with them. And they just started doing it. When you look at Moses, like Moses led the Israelites. We all know the story, the Red Sea, part the sea, whatever you believe, but you know of the story. People were following. So we're all following something.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all going to follow something. For some of us, we follow social media. For some of us, we follow God. For some of us, we follow our neighbors. Some of us, we follow our spouse. It's now, what are you following? There is a wiring, some way, I don't know the science behind it, but there's a wiring within us that we are people that need to be led. It's our nature. We need to be led in some category. We are all being led by someone. We might not all want to admit it, but we're all being led by someone or someone's or something. And so for us, it's now the decision of, I know something is going to lead me in my life. What is it that's going to lead me in my life? That is a decision that I think we all have to make. Some people are being led by something, they don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's the worst place to be. You don't even know. When you don't know that you are following something, something is very wrong because you are following something. And I think that is the biggest thing, is figuring out what is it I'm following, and am I okay in identifying with who is leading me?
It's scary.
It's scary. I mean, that's the thing, and that's the thing. Going back to like my boys, is like when you see the nature of society, like outside, we were following that robot, robot doing meals. For some people, they're following science. For some people, they're following AI. For some people, they're following this celebrity. For some people, they're following what music tells them. Some people, they're following what TV shows tell them to believe. The news, whatever it might be. This shooting that just happened with Trump, it don't matter what you think on either side. The person that tried to shoot at him was following the words of another.
Yep. And
so it's just like, that is a space where we really need to be intentional with who we are following, because who you follow is going to lead you to where you're going to go.
I think it also comes down to broadening your influence. Like if you look at one person, if I'm gonna listen to you about everything,
it ain't no good.
Like I'm just a carbon copy of you. Same thing if I follow a political leader, I'm just gonna subscribe to everything. I can't agree with anything else. Or like in the wellness space, Andrew Huberman, he has a huge audience. Some people are just like, well, if Andrew says it, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
I'm not gonna look at anything else. I trust him. But if you look at, okay, here's my interests, here's what's important to me, and I'm gonna look at 5 doctors for medical stuff. I'm going to look at 3 personal trainers for fitness. I'm going to look at 7 entrepreneurs for business advice. And now you can pick and choose, and you can read books and listen to podcasts and say, okay, Joshua says this, but also Mark says this. I like Mark's a little bit better, but I like how Joshua stated it, so I'm just going to mesh it together. Now you're following a lot of different things, but you're actually making it your own. You're not just like, I'm going to be this exact person, because you might go down the wrong path. You might make mistakes. We're not meant to do that.
I think something that goes along with what you said is allowing yourself access to multiple resources, people, or whatever it might be. But then ultimately, if Joshua says something, Matt says something, David Goggins says something, Earl Nightingale says something, and there's a similarity across the board from 4 people that grew up in 4 different backgrounds, 4 different generations, different upbringings, different ideologies, and there's a common truth amongst those 4. Those things I really tend to hold on to, because this person that grew up in the 40s, this person that grew up in the middle of Indiana and went to Navy SEAL school, this person grew up in Tampa, played football, this person grew up in Pennsylvania, and they all 4 are saying the same thing, must be something valid to that as well. And I think that is something that is very important, is finding people or ways that you can consume books is the same thing. And they're all kind of given this common knowledge. I think that is something that goes back to what we talked about with like the vision. To me, it's all about the why. Why are you doing something? I think that is the one question, whether it was a COVID jab, if it was with my children, if it was with performance coaching, there always has to be a why. When I read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, the one quote that left is, "He who has a why can bear anyhow." When you listen to The Strangest Secret, Earl Nightingale always talks about the key to success is knowing your why. What are your goals? When I listen to Matt Lupi talk and I hear the importance of having a vision and casting it and follow certain things and having a developed foundation, all of that is the why to what I'm doing. And I think if you can find people that have a commonality about the words that they are preaching, such as they know your why. David Goggins talks about this. Why you are doing something, I think can help you get over the hump that a lot of people I think are struggling with. That goes back to like the 9-to-5 situation. Why was I willing to go the entrepreneur route? Well, I didn't know anything else. Someone else that's maybe listening to this that doesn't like their job, that maybe is sad. Maybe they're like, I'm kind of stuck. I'm just stuck. Ask yourself, why are you doing what you're doing? Is it for the paycheck? Is it to appease your dad and the vision that he had for you? Or are you doing it because you truly and earnestly believe this is what is good for your soul? I think if we ask ourselves the question of why more, that I've found to be common amongst people that are doing great things, we'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely. So to stay on this topic of contrarian thinking, what is something that you believe in that most people disagree with you on?
Question that you prepped me for.
Yeah.
So I wasn't stumped, because if you would have asked me this on the spot, I would have been stunned. Okay, so the question is, what is one thing that I believe that most people would disagree? Yep. I can answer anything, correct?
Correct.
I would say the one thing that I believe in that most people disagree with is I believe you should only have sex with your spouse. And I say this because, so this is not the corny dude that was a virgin until he got married. That was not me, okay? But when me and my wife started dating, we both said, and we both had sex with other people, okay? But we both said, we were like, you know what? Why don't we, I know the Bible says this, like my mom used to say this. Why don't we just see if we don't do this and we wait till marriage, what happens, okay? So we then get married, okay, July 8th, have sex that night. 9 months later, to the day, Roman is born, okay? And so that was just kind of a correlation that I learned, was like, yo, we made this decision where we're going to abstain for a period of time. We're going to do what this old book says we ought to do. And now 9 months from the day where it's like, all right, now y'all can do this based on what this book says, one of the biggest blessings of my life is now here. So I don't think it's far-fetched to say that there was, again, a correlation. Like, the Bible tells us that there will be fruit of your labor. Like, you'll be able to see in someone the good that they have done and the bad that they have done. I've also believed that with sex, like, again, I've been in college, I understand like the culture and things of that sort, and just the modern day culture. This is the most sexualized society I think that we've ever had, maybe since the Romans. And so for me, when you just live in this day and age where the marriage rate is the lowest it's ever been, the divorce rate is the highest it's ever been, the suicide rate is the highest it's ever been, I just believe, going to the contrarian thinking, that if you put it in a group of 25 to 35-year-olds and you have a tally, 100 of them, and you say, all right, should you be free to have sex with whoever you want? Should you only have sex with your spouse? It might be 5% or less that say the latter. So that to me would be my answer. If someone's listening to this, I would just give it a shot. I would give it a try. I also adopted this from Jordan Matthews. We talked about absorbing information from other people. Jordan Matthews was the first person that, like, we had a conversation like, look, man, this is something you ought to do. Like, you and Lydia, he knew about our relationship. This is something you ought to do. And I just could say for ourselves, we have seen the fruit of this decision. So I'm not going to tell anybody what to do with their life, but that would be one thing I think is worth an attempt. And I think it will help you be better in marriage, be more selective in dating, and I think the society will be better. Yeah. So that would be my thing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Next question for you. How do you define success?
How do I define success? I would say, without cheating, using Earl Nightingale's definition, I would say, I guess I kind of have to use some. That's such a great question. I would say success is the continuously working towards a goal that means something to you. So it's the person that's listening to this and they're afraid of the gym. They're 100 pounds overweight, 50 pounds, 20, whatever it might be. Maybe they're underweight, they want to add muscle. And this is this goal that it seems so daunting. It seems like I could never look like how I want to look, but there is a vision in my mind that this is how I want my body to be. Mm-hmm. You're not just a success when you've reached your goal of losing 25 pounds. You're a success the first day you go to the gym, you show up, you lift 3 sets, and you leave because you came. You did more than you did yesterday. Yeah. Now you're a success that day you stay 10 minutes. You walk a mile on a treadmill. My mom right now, she don't want to lift no weights. She don't want to squat. She don't want to go outside. That's not her thing. For her, she wants to walk on a treadmill 1 mile every day. Every day she steps on that treadmill. It doesn't matter the speed, doesn't matter the incline, doesn't matter how she feels before, how she feels after. As long as she gets on the treadmill and the thing says 1.0 miles, success. For you, every time you're about to graduate with your master's from LSU, every time you did your homework, success. Every time you did a module or contributed to the message board, anything of that sort, you are a success. And I think if we can dumb down the thinking of, which goes with our generation, the microwave society, if we can dumb down the thinking to all I need to do today is take one step towards the goal that I've stated for myself that I did not take yesterday, I'm a success. Mm-hmm. If you develop that mindset, you'll sleep better, you'll feel better about yourself, you have more confidence, and you will get to your goal sooner. And I think that is what we have to develop, is the being okay in the acceptance of the slow grind. And I would say that's, if you're willing to slow grind something out, you're a success.
Yeah, that's really good. And I love how it can be tracked every single day.
Every day.
One of the owners of Collective, Jeremy Hills, he has this mantra of win the day. I know it's used in many different ways, and like he has it trademarks, but he always just says win the day. And on his Instagram story, he'll post something like a quote at like 2:30 in the morning. He's like, win the day. And I talked to him one time, and he's just like, yeah, it's a way to track. Are you winning or are you losing? And if you win, lose, you're still up 5-2 on the week, right? So we can look at it and kind of gamify this. You don't have to be perfect all the time. You don't have to think that success is only going to come in 10 years. It could be today. You're achieving success. Maybe tomorrow you fall behind, but don't miss the next day. Get that next win, and then kind of look at it as a record. A lot of people listen to this or whatever, like they're former athletes. They know how to play sports. Everybody wants to win, so why not take the same approach to life?
I think for a lot of people, again, it goes to the simplification of it, is if you win today, tomorrow, you're ahead of everybody else. Yeah. Because most people is not winning no days. Mm-hmm. Taking the cheap way out, making excuses, passing the buck. They're not doing the little things to where it's like, even when I don't feel like it, like again, for you with the pain cave, most people at 6 a.m., I'm out. But for those that show up, it doesn't matter what they do the rest of the day, they've won because they made that decision for themselves. I'll ask you the same question. Have you been asked that question? Your definition of success? What would you say?
Only a few times. So for the longest time, I always thought success was just progress. Like basically it's very similar to you. Like, are you progressing towards something? If you're doing like one little thing, getting 1% better, or even 0.5%, whatever, closer to your goal, that's success. And I still think that, but recently in the past year, I think it's changed a lot. And I think success is more of being a contrarian because society, and that's why I love asking the question, like, what do you believe in that nobody else does? Because if you can't answer that, you're not thinking big enough.
At all.
You don't have your own opinion about anything. So society wants to put us in a box and say, this is how things are going to be. You're going to be broke. You're going to be overweight. You're going to not have friends. You're going to be divorced. If you look at the statistics, that's what the average American is. And to listen to the media of the people feeding you that information, to go to the schools of the people feeding you that information, to have the friends that think the same way.
Programming.
You're set up to just fall in line, be a sheep, be unsuccessful. And I'm not saying that being a contrarian will bring you millions of dollars, will bring you a big business or anything, but I think it will bring you fulfillment. I think success is having enough courage to stand up for what you believe in. And if you can do that, good things will happen. You'll build an audience, and at least you can lay on your deathbed knowing I gave it my all.
What is one thing you believe that most people don't?
I think a lot of my hot take opinions come politically. I think the country of America was founded on, freedom, and nowadays we're set up to fail. And I think no matter what people believe, like, I'm going to vote for President Biden or President Trump, I think the overall political system in America is designed to have us fall in line, fail, and turn into a nation that we've never even seen before. I think people are like a little bit too ignorant to even think that's a possibility, because they think America's great. Everything's going to be awesome. We're not a dictatorship. And all of a sudden you trust these people and it keeps going downhill, downhill, downhill. And someone tries to come and fix it. They try to shoot that person.
That's crazy.
It's just a mess of issues that a lot of people can't comprehend, or they don't know where to even look to understand it. So they're looking at the news and they're being fed misinformation. So I truly think that we're set up to fail. We're set up to be broke and, just average, and set up to turn into a nation of followers and just fall into line and die one day.
Scary thoughts, man.
Yeah.
That's what's the solution?
Leadership. I think you need to stand for something. You need to have some role in society where you can step up as a leader. But I think success is like the ultimate rebellion. Like, if they want you to be overweight, get fit. Put your middle finger up to them and just say, I all your food out there and your Ozempic, and I'm doing something different. I'm lifting weights. I'm eating steak. I'm living life. If they want you to be broke, build a business, get a good career, put up that middle finger. Like, do the things that are so opposite of what they want. And if you can do that, I'm big on leading by example. If you can be the example, how is that going to impact your connections, the way people view you? And now they're going to take different action and be like, oh, I see Joshua doing this. I'm going to start doing it. And all of a sudden, you start to touch one person, they start to touch a couple more. You can change a lot of people.
Domino effect.
I'm not going to stand up here and be like, I'm going to run for president and change the world. But if I can change one person in my community and they change two and it goes from there, you can change the world.
Yeah, I was always told you might not be able to change the world, but you can change your world.
Yeah.
And if you change your world, it's a residual effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, man.
Yeah. Someone's got to step up. So call to action for anyone here.
Yeah. I can see you running, though. Mayor Loopy one day.
I got like 15 more years before that. So
fair enough. Yeah.
Last question for you. So for someone listening to this that they want to be successful, they feel lost or uninspired, what is one piece of advice you'd give them?
I'll give you two. I would listen to Define Success podcast by Matt Loopy. I think that, and I earnestly say it, not just because I'm on here, because, hearing what you're talking about, right? Leadership, vision, discipline, the willingness to do, showing up, like these principles, these are lost arts. You know what I mean? There's not many 23-year-olds that understand what this country was founded on, for example, or that's paying attention to what's going on in the political landscape, or that understands how food these days is poison, not to consume seed oils, like little things of that sort. This is like real knowledge. You know what I mean? The Bible tells us that the Lord says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And the least you know, that's why you become a sheep. And sheep, what they don't realize is the wolves are after them. You know what I mean? And so I would say I would listen to this podcast, not just this episode, but other ones, because I know at least on this one, you are going to talk real. It's going to be something that's impactful. Even if you listen to this and maybe we talk for an hour and there's one thing you can take away, you became better because you showed up and you listened to this podcast. So I would say that would be one. And then I would say two is I would read. I think read more books. We just, I think the literacy rate, I want to say, and I think I'm noticing this because I have a 4-year-old, obviously a 2-year-old. The literacy rate right now in grade school kids is one of the lowest it's ever been. Kids these days don't know their letters, their numbers. People that can't read can't abide by leadership. They can't think for themselves. It's easier to be led astray when you're just being told what to think, what to believe. And so I would say, there's a book I just read about manhood and how we ought to evolve ourselves as men. And one of the greatest ways that the enemy tries to separate us is creating a disconnection from the wisdom of those that have come before to us. And so I would say I would read, as cliche as it, pick up a book and start churning, because there's wisdom in anything that you can get your hands on.
Yeah.
So at least on the book side, unless it's rubbish, of course.
Yeah.
But that'll be, yeah.
Not reading is no better than not being able to read.
Yeah, for sure.
If you have the skill, use it.
Use it, man. Use it. You can put yourself around. Take an inventory. Like, get out a piece of paper. Take an inventory. This is what I did today. These are the people that I talked to today. This is what my habits are today. Is this taking me to where I want to get to, or is this bringing me backwards? Whatever's taking you, do it more. Whatever's bringing you backwards, cross it off. Stop doing it. Simple.
Powerful.
That's it.
Love it. I appreciate you coming on, man.
No, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Third time's a charm for sure.
There it is.
Thanks for coming here. Thanks for dropping all the value and getting a good workout.
I appreciate you having me, my brother.
Of course.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.